Welcome, welcome, welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm EmKay Sullivan.
And I'm Dani Moreno. And today we are going to be covering a couple of topics. We're going to be doing a quick recap on the World Championships, which happened this past week in Innsbruck, Austria, where we had 4 different races. We had a VK, the trail short, trail long, and the mountain classic. And then we're going to do a quick preview of the Broken Arrow Skyrace this weekend of the VK and the 23K. And then lastly, we are going to have recent world champ, who is now a double world champ, Grayson Murphy, on the show, where we'll interview her just about how the world champs went and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with her. It was a fun week. So let's just kind of go through some results. I know that you and Adam and Aaron and Tabor and Eli all did some recaps. But starting out the week, we had the vertical races. And for women, we had the legendary Andrea Marr winning in pretty insane fashion, followed by Falaris Gerudo Kisang and our very own Grayson Murphy in third place. And on the men's side, Patrick Kipniego won it, came back again from last year. In second place was Levi Kiprotich. And in third place was Josfat Kiprotich. So the men's and women's race was a little different. And it was kind of like this in the classic too, where on the women's side, you had a lot of you had an Austrian, a Kenyan, and a US athlete in the top 3. Whereas on the men's side, it was all East African runners. So super, super cool, but also very different. And we also have to mention that Joe Gray was 5th in this race. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that much of a dominance either. We mentioned in our preview episode, that Uganda had missed this race last year. So we were interested to see how those teams would do in this race this year. And yeah, on the men's side, they just really showed up. On the women's side, I was pretty impressed with us. Who we thought was going to be on the podium was pretty spot on. Yeah. We did miss out on Ali Mack, and she did share, in a recent Instagram post that she wasn't quite feeling herself. But I mean, Laura Hottentrott, who we also mentioned from Germany, she was right up there in that mix behind Grayson.
Yeah, super cool to watch.
Yeah. With the Instagram live, if you haven't seen it already, highly recommend checking it out. I had, like EmKay said, 2 power couples on the Instagram lives. And for this one, we had Adam Peterman and Aaron Clark. And Adam Peterman gave a lot of vibes that he really wants to try the VK at the next world champ. So that'd be really fun.
Would love that.
Yes.
I mean,
he's like, I really wanted to see Jim Walmsley to do it.
I know. I know. And they have Mount Sentinel out at their stomping grounds. So I'm sure he'd be plenty fine at a vertical race.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. So in the trail short, our top 3 on the women's side were Clementine Joffrey, Judith Wider, and Teresa LaBouffe. And on the men's side, reigning champ Stian Angermund came back and won again, followed by Thomas Roach in second and Luca Del Pero from Italy in third. That race was insane. Both Clementine and Stian, I believe, won the race in the final descent. Both of them kind of sat and kicked almost.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too, because Judith, to me, is one of the best women downhillers in the world. And her post recently, also on Instagram, she mentioned that Clementine just blew past her going into that last downhill. She had out power hiked her and then just took off. And Clementine had one of the fastest splits, men or women, of the last almost 2 miles. And I looked on Strava, and legitimately she has she's in the top 10 overall from that day, right behind Anders from Norway, which that just blows my mind that she was able to run that fast, which if I had Judith on my tail, I'd also try and run the fastest downhill of my life, knowing that she was hunting me down. And our men's podium, we were a little off. I did not know Thomas Roach or Luca Del Pero before this race. And then on the women's side, you weren't part of that preview, but I had a really hard time naming the podium because I felt like there was like 15 women that could be on the podium.
And that's basically how the day went, is like there were just like 15 women that kept like switching around all day.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was exciting. And then, and of course, in fourth place, Jen Lichter from the US, American hero. She was in that race from the beginning, never let up. At one point, I thought she was going to get third from what I was hearing, but holding on for fourth, still insane.
Yeah,
especially coming back from that injury.
Yeah, coming back from injury and this kind of being like her first big international race. I was kind of thinking she'd be in the top 5, but you never know. Like when it's your first time, competing, like in these styles of races where people kind of throw punches in interesting ways. But yeah, congrats to her. I was really happy when I saw the results of her in fourth and you in the top 10 as well.
Yeah. On trail long, in first for the women's, we have Marianne Delespierre from France. In second, Katharina Hartmuth from Germany. And in third, Manon Bohard Cailler. The French. It's probably Cailler. And then on the men's side, in first, Benjamin Robiot from France. Second was Andreas Ritier from Italy. And in third was Peter Franjo from Slovakia. The women's race for the trail long saw a lot of like switching in that last probably like 2-3 hours. They were really close to each other for a while, but France pretty much cleaned up on both the men's and the women's side when it came down to it in that final little bit. Yeah,
I know. I mean, they each of the winners won by 7-8 minutes on the women's side and on the men's side. I definitely did not call either of these podiums. I may have only called Andreas Reiter from Italy because he's been up in that top 3. But yeah, the thing that sticks out to me is like when we finish our races, there's definitely emotions involved. But these races, it's just like, so it feels a lot more intense when they cross the line because they've been out there for like half a day. And so when Marion crossed the line and she was like crying, and then it was more so when the third place woman, Manon, crossed the line, she was just like, she like lost herself in the best way possible. You can't help but like feel your throat kind of start to choke up a little bit. And then on the men's side, I mean, our men going 5, 6, 7, that race was just like so fun to watch from afar. Sometimes with these long races, it's hard for me to stay engaged the entire live stream. But once you heard like that movement, especially because Zach Miller was in the mix like the entire time, it was just about, waiting to see if they won. And sadly they didn't, but a very valiant effort on their end.
Yeah, that was so cool to watch in person, especially the classic Zach Miller sprint finish, but he was being challenged by Drew Holman. Oh my gosh. Yes. They came through. I have never wanted to not be someone so bad than those two. Having to run like a 2-mile flat stretch of road after this mountainous race and having to like race each other because they were racing for time. Oh my God, it looked terrible.
I know. I could not imagine that at all. I have like this image in my head too, where then Eric LaPuma, he was coming in 7th and he grabs the flag and Zach Miller's like pointing at his watch. He's like, come on, every second counts.
Yeah, they were not messing around.
Yeah. And then also on the women's side, we forgot to mention, we got
2 women in the top 10.
Yeah, Allison Baca, which I think that might be her best result ever. And then shout out to Emily Schmitz. I had a feeling she might be in the top 10 just because she's been racing so well in some of the UTMB series. We're both coached by the same coach, so it was really cool to see her in the top 10 too. It
was kind of stressful because Allison's chip kept disappearing at aid stations. And so she was like in the top 5 and then all of a sudden she'd be like 2 aid stations back and it's like, oh my gosh, did something happen? And then she would like jump up a couple aid stations, but then at the end it just stopped working completely. So when we knew that Emily was about to come down the finish chute, but we didn't know that Allison was coming. So all of a sudden she just rips around this corner. We're like, oh my God, Like, it was so cool because we hadn't heard anything from her for like 2 hours almost.
Which in these races, you know, that's a big difference if you don't hear for someone for 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Those chips were getting a little wild.
Also, I'd like to mention, just because we have been talking about the trail long, we understand we're the sub hub and we always will be the sub hub. There'll just be special occasions where we'd like to include these longer races as well.
Yeah. Especially if Team USA is crushing in them.
Exactly.
And then in the final day, the Mountain Classic, of course, in first place, we have our world champion, Grayson Murphy. In second was Tove Alexandersson from Sweden. And in third was Joyce Muthoni from Kenya. On the men's side, in first from Uganda was Leonard Chimutai. In second, Ombogo Philemon from Kenya. And in third, Philemon Abraham from Germany. That women's race was insane.
I mean, both races were insane, right? We were missing a couple people that we had thought were going to be in this race that might have scratched last minute, that we mentioned in the preview. But otherwise, I mean, we were expecting Grayson, Tove, and Joyce to be up there. Yeah. So that's really exciting. We're going to get into more details about the race when we interviewed Grayson in a couple of minutes. But to me, one of the things that stood out is just like, she took the reins of that race from the start, and she just like, it was Grayson's world and you just were living in it. If you were in that race, from the get-go, she took charge and from start to finish just ran an incredible masterclass race. So yeah. And honestly, Tove kind of did exactly what I thought she was going to do, was to try and like take as much time as she could on the downhill. And it worked out mostly for her. She ended up getting second in the world. So that's pretty cool.
And there was a while where I thought she was going to get passed on that second downhill because the second uphill was a bit of a struggle, but she just hammered it again. Yeah.
Incredible. And then on the men's side, Uganda and Kenya again had 4 of the top 5 spots. Philemon happened to squeak in there for Germany in third. Patrick Kipniego came back for 5th after winning the VK. But this race, honestly, from like the live stream, it looked like I was watching like Boston or something. They were running so fast. They were running so fast and so fluid. And, you know, you could see some of the carbon shoes and stuff. And I'm just like, they are running so fast that from the get-go, you just knew they were going to be gone. Like you had to have the leg speed or else.
Yeah. People were like rushing around town the whole week trying to find carbon shoes because a lot of athletes like weren't expecting how much road. But even if they did expect the road, they didn't realize that like the trails that they were running on weren't very technical. And so they were like, we have to find some road shoes and like, we need carbon stat. So if you got your hands on them, great. If you didn't, it probably, your feet were probably a little hurt by the end with all that pavement pounding.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Especially with some of those grades on the pavement where you just have to lean into it. Oh, I can't imagine. But yeah, this race was, and I mean, they were all sprinting to the finish. The top 3 guys were within 13 seconds of each other. Like,
yeah, the team race was so close too. So they were fighting for those spots.
Dang, that is so cool. Yeah. I loved seeing kind of like the longer finish line shot, and there's like 5 of them within 100 meters, and you're like, come on. It's kind of like Boston when you think they're so much closer than they are. But it was pretty cool. But overall, in the end, at the end of the World Championships, they started this thing this year called like the Federation Points. I think it's what it's called. And while you have the VK and the Mountain Classic are determined by place in the race, and the trail races are determined by time, which again, reminder, that's why our American men were sprinting to the finish, was to try and get as many seconds as they could for that team time. This year, they did it where no matter what place you got in what race, if you got first, you got 190 points. If you got second, you got 189, and then so on and so forth. And then they totaled those points at the end. And then they claimed overall country champions. EmKay, do you know if they did like, what's it called? If they included every single athlete, or was it like only the top 3 of each race or something like that?
I don't know, but my guess is that it would be only the top 3 since that's who scored anyways. But at the same time, when we're looking at these results right now, you can see the points next to their time. And so it may be everyone.
Interesting. Yeah, because then there's obviously a bigger benefit to countries who have more athletes. I hope it's not every person.
Oh, then it's probably top 3 then. Yeah, because I didn't even think about that. Because like Great Britain, the guys, for example, like they won the team title, but they only had 3 athletes. So like if, they would have just gotten totally gypped if it counted anybody more.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, in the end, France came up on top with 3,247 points. Italy was second, 3,210 points, and USA was 3,076 points, which, I mean, dang, that was so cool to see. I mean, I honestly was surprised Spain wasn't up like in that top 3.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty close race.
Yeah. Race week.
Whole week. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's kind of like the World Champs recap. Like I said, there's a couple of Instagram lives with both power couples in our sport right now. They're pretty hilarious if you know the dynamics of Adam and Aaron versus the Hemmings. So highly recommend you check those out. And now let's jump into Broken Arrow.
Yeah, this is one of the best trail weekends in the US for sure. And it piggybacks on Western States, which makes it even more fun because it's just like such a busy week. But Broken Arrow kicks off the 2023 Valsier Mountain Running World Cup. The course this year is incredibly snowy, which makes it a very different race than it has been the last couple of years. The last couple of years have been dry as a bone and wicked fast. But it'll be a little bit less about who's fastest in some cases and more about who can move efficiently through the snow and kind of tough it out on the day. I don't know if you've seen videos, but they're carving stairs into the VK as we speak.
Yeah, I've seen the videos, and it'll be interesting because the way that the Eastern Sierra is right now, like soon as the sun starts hitting the snow, it just starts turning to slush. So something like the VK, I need to look at the time, but usually it's later in the day. Yeah. It's just going to be such a slush fest just trying to get uphill. I really feel for those athletes right now because I personally don't enjoy going uphill in slush. You're just like sliding the entire time. But I'm sure some parts on the spine will be, melted out where hopefully they can get some leg turnover. And then, it's kind of interesting. So the last time there was a big snow year, I think it was in 2018. Yeah, that's crazy. All the records were broken that year because there's certain parts of the course where you actually can get down faster if you know how to navigate snow.
And Shirley Canyon hurts when there's like no snow. So to be able to glissade down that would be so nice.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see how that is. I feel like the 23K will probably won't be one of the biggest benefiters from the snow. The 46K, again, I feel for those athletes because as it starts to get warm, it'll get slushy. But again, like the downhill won't take it as much out of their legs if they know how to glissade or get down the snow efficiently. Yeah. All right. So women's VK highlights. As far as the women, we think you all should look out for, especially if you're doing Freetrail, which side note, there's like close to $5,000 in prizes for Freetrail between Broken Arrow and Western States. So if we get any of the predictions right, you're welcome.
Also, you owe us money.
You owe us money. Please Venmo us. First off, we have Grayson Murphy. It does appear that she's running. We'll confirm that in a little bit, but she is in the Tahoe area. So she just got third in the world. Odds are she's pretty fit a week later. So we definitely think she'll probably end up taking the crown. We also have Anna Gibson. She just finished her career at University of Washington at NCAAs, right? In the 1500, like last week. And she was the winner of the RUP VK in 2022, which is similarly like a high altitude VK. We have Anna Mae Flynn. She's kind of been injured like the past few years. And she's coming back from a hamstring surgery, but Anna Mae Flynn in her prime, to me, is like, she's top VKer in the world too, like top 5, no doubt. So if she's feeling good and feeling fit, she'll definitely be up there.
Yeah. Other noticeable names would be Laura Hamilton. She's an Aussie who lives in Colorado. She was 28th in the VK and 27th in the Classic last week. So, and I think she was feeling pretty good about those efforts too. So she's, on a high. Allie Mack, not sure if she'll be racing just based off of her post from last week about how she kind of like burnt out. But, just in case she is, I put her down. And then also another maybe would be Allie Ostrander. I know she was hurt and dropped out of U.S. championships due to being injured, but recently I've been seeing her do some uphill efforts out in Washington and then walking the downhills. So like the VK could be something that maybe she's still planning on doing. And if she is, I wouldn't count her out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like that would be the one race that maybe she'd come out and do to kind of like kick off her trail season, because I know she signed up for a lot of the Golden Trail races. And it might be a good time to like start getting some efforts in. Yeah. So men's VK, Zach Hanna, he was 5th in the VK in Thailand last November, which was the other world championships before this most recent one. We also have Andy Wacker, who has had a lot of success here and just like always is kind of like up in the mix in US sub ultra races. He's coming back from Achilles, so maybe this is his way to kind of like test that out and see how that's going. Darren Thomas, I'll let you add some color there since you know him, EmKay.
Yeah, Darren has been out of racing for the last year due to a pretty bad foot injury. But I think he could still pull out something good. He ran up our local hill, I think like a week ago, and he ran 2 minutes slower than his CR, which is a very impressive CR as it is. And that's an all uphill, almost 3-mile effort. So I could still see him doing pretty well in this race, despite the fact that he hasn't raced since Zagama last year.
Dang. Yeah, that'd be really cool if he can get a good effort in there with coming back. Justin Small, he's a teammate of mine from Terex. He just did the GoPro Pepe's challenge, which that's a race that I have put off for many years purposely, because it's basically like this half-a-mile loop that you try and complete as many times in 30 minutes. Anyways, he ended up tying for first. He also got second at Canyons 50K earlier this year to Hayden Hawks. So yeah, I think he's really strong. I think he could be in that podium if he's feeling pretty sharp. And then Morgan Elliott, he was on the world champion VK and classic team. He didn't have a good showing from him at this last world. Was it Thailand?
No, he was at Innsbruck.
Innsbruck.
Innsbruck, Dubai. I don't think he had the days that he wanted to have, but he's also like a mountain athlete, and like that classic race was definitely not his vibe. So if he's like recovered and has had okay travel, I could see him doing pretty well at this VK.
That's cool. Yeah, it'd be great to see him up there because he is a really good climber. A couple other guys, Tyler McCandless, he just won the GoPro 10K this past weekend. He's always kind of like dabbled in trail stuff. But he's a wicked fast road runner. I think his PR, it's definitely he's been making the trials, and he recently won a marathon. So I'd have to double check what he ended up running, but he ran the trials time again. So he's a really fast road guy. He'll be there. And then Jackson Brill kind of like is always in the mix too.
Yeah, Jackson may be tired from the short trail at Worlds, but it's a VK. You never know.
You never know. You either got it or you don't. And if you got it, great. You'll probably crush. All right, now the 23K. Some women we think you should look out for. Grayson Murphy, if she is going to race. She did, if she does the VK, that'll be 3 races in a week about. So maybe she'll decide to opt out of the 23K, but she is signed up still. So that'd be great. There is a lot of snow, but I think she's, at least seeing her in person, she can rock the snow. It's just a matter of like how hard she wants to go in this race. But if she's in it, I would definitely call her out to probably win, just based on the fact that she's incredibly fit right now and probably hasn't lost anything in a week. Another girl, probably not. Another girl, couple of women are Janelle Links. She recently won the GoPro Mountains Games this past weekend, and she won the 23K in 2022, and which upon later that year, she won the Golden Trail National Series, which had like a 3-day stage race in, I think it was the Azores later that year. I think, was it kind of like earlier last year that she was injured?
Yeah, she was signed up for so she ran Broken Arrow last year and did not have the performance that I kind of expected from her. And then about a month later, she posted about being injured. And so I have a feeling she may have raced injured in that scenario. But I know that since then she's hired a coach and hopefully is training a little bit smarter than she was when I had talked to her last.
Okay.
But
so she actually won in 2021, the 23K.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 2021.
Gotcha.
2022 was not a great year for her. And then, but I think if Janelle is on, like, she's always somebody to look out for. Like, she's so tough. So especially in these conditions, I could see her pulling something out that maybe even beating Grayson, in my opinion, but we'll see. And then another name, Tabor Hemming. She was 3rd in the VK last year and 4th in the 23K. So she knows this course really well. She's also about to embark on this insane triple of doing the 23K this weekend, Mont Blanc Marathon next weekend, and then Mount Marathon, I think the weekend after, July 4th. So pretty close. Which, wild.
Yeah, I wish her the best of luck. I would love to see her crush all of those. That would just be, that'd be historic. Yes. Yeah. And she's a quick woman too. Like, I think her PR is like 33 low in the 10K when she was running at University of Colorado. A couple other women, we have Rachel Drake, who I think honestly is still coming back. So I don't know if she'll be like up in that podium mix, but you never know. Rachel Drake is extremely talented. So even if she has a couple of weeks under her, she could probably be in that top 5. Ollie Ostrander, kind of the same with the VK. We don't know if she's going to be there, but if she is, it'd be really fun to watch her. Anna Gibson, this race could be a little long for her. She's been mainly sticking to like VKs, but she also is coming off of NCAAs. So she could also be really fit and maybe just testing the waters with these longer ones. And then Nicole Miracle, she got 3rd at the GoPro Games this past weekend, both in the 10K and Pepes. She's like an OCR multi-world champion, national champion, very quick woman. And she's been training with the trail team ladies, where Andy Wacker has kind of been coaching this fun group. So I think that's been benefiting her trail skills lately.
Yeah, seeing them all train together has been really cool.
Yeah.
On the men's side, we have Chad Hall, who was 6th at Pikes Peak Ascent last year. He hasn't had the best trail results this year, but he did run a really fast marathon and then attempted to come back to the U.S. Championships like basically a week and a half later. So that could be part of it. And then another guy would be Patrick Parcell. He's a Tahoe legend, really good trail runner, but also Nordic skier from the area. He doesn't race often, but when he does, it's usually lights out. And he knows the area, trains in the area, and has run the course before. So he probably doesn't even have any idea that this podcast exists, but good luck, Patrick.
Love that. We also have Eli Hemming, Tabor's husband. He was second in the VK and the 23K last year. And he ended up basically scoring in multiple top 10s in the Golden Trail the rest of the year, with a big finish at Flagstaff, where I believe he got second at Flagstaff, second or third. He's now on the Solomon Global team. And he's also embarking on the insane triple with Tabor Hemming. So good luck to them. I'm really excited to see how that goes. And then we also have Garrett Cochran. He was recently 13th at the World Short Trail, and he's the U.S. Trail Marathon champ. We actually have an interview with him. Not sure if he's racing. He might be a little bit tired. But if he is racing, like definitely still a contender for the podium, especially with the snow. I think the snow is going to lower all the times that people are out there.
Yeah. And last I talked to him, I'm pretty sure he is still planning on racing. So just depends, I think, on if he's feeling recovered or not.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then we also have Noah Williams. He was 5th at the Breakneck Marathon and 2nd at Pikes Peak Marathon. And then we also have Patty O'Leary from the Bay Area. He recently won the Dipsy race, which is pretty cool. That's a pretty historic race in the area. He won that either last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And then we also have Kiernan Ney. He's from Gunnison, Colorado, and he's gotten 9th place at this race the last 2 years. So it would just be really cool for him to, hopefully bump into that next top 5. But yeah, I'm excited because EmKay's dark horse, Janelle Links, on the women's side is in the women's race, as well as my dark horse. This is like from one of the first couple episodes, Rachel Drake. But then also we have Chad Hall, who's my guy, dark horse, in the men's 23K. So I'm excited to see how this goes. Maybe I'll get some points on my end this weekend.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we gave you guys plenty of rundown and some good information for your Freetrail fantasy. We're not going to do podiums today because we're going to go chat with world champ Grayson Murphy. So stay tuned. And now we have with us Grayson Murphy. If you don't know who Grayson is somehow, she is a 5-time All-American, ran for the University of Utah. In 2021, she was both 6th at the Olympic trials in the steeplechase and the U.S. champion in the mountain race at Narnar. She made the team for Thailand that year, but it was canceled for like the 2nd or 3rd time at that point. But she went to Hawaii to represent the U.S. team at Xterra Champs and was the champion there as well. And she is now your 2-time world champ, as she was the world champ in the Mountain Classic in 2019 in Patagonia, and now in 2023 in Innsbruck, Austria, just last week. Welcome, Grayson.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you. Not just like as a fellow runner, competitor, participant in the sport, but just like as a friend, and seeing you get that win was a bit emotional, just knowing everything that has happened since 2019. So as EmKay mentioned, in 2019, Grayson decided not only to leave the team that she was currently training with, but to pursue trail running. And it was such an exciting thing for the sport because she's one of the bigger, more well-known names that had started to enter, coming in with like extremely fast track PRs, both 5K, but also the steeplechase. So within that first year, Grayson starts trail running, gets herself a spot on the USA team where she had won the USA championships, and then won the world championship in Patagonia in 2019, where it was a 1-loop course that year. So kind of just like backtracking to that first year, how was it winning that first time as like a world champion?
I think it was pretty unexpected for everyone, myself included. But it was kind of a surreal experience. And yeah, I was so new to trail running at that point that I think everything was just like, what's going on? I don't even know what's happening half the time. And it was super cool, and it's been a fun journey to come full circle.
Tell us a little bit about the course in Patagonia, because I have a feeling that it was extremely different from the one that you just ran.
Yeah, I think any course is extremely different from the one we just ran. Patagonia, like Dani said, was a one loop course. And I actually looked at it before Austria because I was curious. And it was pretty close to the same vert and distance profile, but over one loop instead of two. And then significantly less road sections, a lot more like technical trails. And I think I ran it like 30 minutes faster, I think, this year on like a similar vert and distance. So it goes to show, I guess, how much the road plays into that too. But yeah, it was also really rainy that day. There was a couple creek crossings that were significant. And I was wearing like arm sleeves. So I think it was pretty cold too. So I think the weather was quite different also.
Yeah, I'd say the road. Oh yeah. I was going to say the road definitely helps, but 4 years of fitness also helps a bit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that year Grayson kind of just like took off very similarly, held on to that first place from the beginning. And like one of the first creek crossings, like for the youth team, there's people like, you know, for adults crossing the creek, like they could get across pretty well. But for like a 16-year-old, some of them just like fell face flat in the road. It was crushing so fast. But yeah, that was pretty incredible. So you finish your first year of trail running as a world champ, right? And then you go into 2020. And so before things, you know, the world started going through the pandemic, was the goal originally to go back to the world championships and try and earn a back-to-back?
Yeah, for sure. And to do Golden Trail series, I had so many grand plans for 2020, and then they all just, like everyone else, got snuffed out. So yeah.
Well, and I'm assuming you were also planning on doing the Olympic trials when they were originally scheduled as well.
Yeah. It was.
That is a big year.
Yeah.
Especially because you'd have to, like, with the trials, I would imagine that would end up being like smack dab in the middle of that trail season.
Yeah, I think I would have just not started trails until track had ended.
Gotcha. That's still so cool. So what were the Golden Trail races in 2020? Were they the same as what they are now, Dani?
Yeah, more or less. What ended up happening in 2020 was it was going to be the same six that it had been the past couple of years, which included like Zagama, Sierras Now, all those ones, and Dolomites. And I forgot what the last two were going to be, but then they ended up doing like this golden segment thing that was kind of confusing at first, but ended up working out for a lot of Americans and athletes and stuff. That's where Rachel Drake got second overall. But yeah, so then you go into 2021, and I'm guessing those goals got shifted as they did for a lot of athletes. So kind of walk us through like what the original plan was for 2021.
It was to do the Olympic trials and then trail stuff. And pretty much 2021 went pretty much to plan, I would say. After the pandemic, I was kind of bored. I wanted to run faster. I'd done like a lot of trail stuff because I wasn't racing. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll do steeple this year, I guess. And the original plan was just to qualify. But then I ended up getting the world standard too. So that was like a extra bonus.
That's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
What was the world standard at that point?
It was, I think, 9:30, and I ran 9:25.
Did you run that? You ran that in the prelim, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much like by yourself. I remember watching that. Like you just like pushed from the front and you were like, all right, today's the day that we're going to run a huge PR and the world standard.
Yeah. I think it was a 7-second PR. I didn't really intend to do that. It just kind of happened, which I guess that's like every coach's just race and it happens kind of thing. So it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. My coach used to say that all the time, like, just go race and the times will come.
Yep, exactly. It did come. So yeah.
No, I love that. I remember that. That was almost to the T of this month, right? Because it was in June. I remember at Western States, we were watching you on screen with your cute little face buns, just like crushing the last 100 meters with the barrier to get that. So then with 2021, something that kind of frustratingly happened in the trail and mountain world is the world championships got deferred. Basically because some countries had kind of moved on to the next phase in the pandemic while some other countries did not. And the world championships were slotted for Thailand that year to occur. And so it ended up getting, deferred. We'll just say that to the following June, I think originally at that point. And so you finished trials and you had already made the mountain team at that point, right? Because Narnar was before the trials.
Narnar was after, but I had the auto spot too because I was defending champion. So that was how I was already on it. But
so what made you decide that you wanted to race Narnar and try and go for that? That year, we only had the up-down US champs. So I wanted to do a US champs just because I feel like you should and still compete just because you have the auto spot. I don't think it's like a reason to duck out of things. And it's a good tune-up. That was the beginning of my trail season that year in August. So it was like a nice way to start off the trail season after a long track season.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty fun race too. It was pretty fast, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that one was really fast. They've all been so fast. I don't know what's wrong.
See, I look at the one that you just ran at Sunapee and I'm like, oh, I would be so slow on those trails. But like looking at the buttery West Coast ones, I'm like, that looks fun to me.
Yeah, that one was like on a mountain bike track too.
Yeah.
Like it was so flowy.
Talk about airplane arms.
Oh,
turning around those corners.
Yeah.
No, I remember you going back to Narnar and just thinking that was extremely impressive, just like solidifying your ability to kind of go back and forth because you just had this entire track season and then you go back and you crush Narnar. And then, like I mentioned, the world champs got deferred. So kind of walk us through like what happened there for you emotionally, I guess, when you learned that they were deferred.
I was bummed for sure because then at that point it had been 2 years since the last one. And every year you're like hyping yourself up to go like defend the title and then you can't. And I was just sick of the pandemic stuff. I know everyone was, and that's not something to complain about is races getting canceled. But yeah, it'd been like 2 years at that point of dealing with cancellations like that. So it was kind of annoying, but the Xterra race, I like those races. So it was a fine compromise to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, that was really cool because they ended up sending the whole USA team. And so it was like you, Bailey, I can't remember. Rachel
and Megan.
And Megan, yeah. And you guys pretty much just like sweeped.
Yeah, I think there was like one person in between us, the four of us.
And so had you had any other trail race plans other than world champs like that year after Narnar?
Yeah, I spent a month in Europe in all of September and did a bunch of World Cup races and then a road 10K.
Oh, I remember this. Was this the launch of like the Saucony Endorphin or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I did like 4 trail races and then finished the trip with a road 10K.
I remember that. We actually got to spend time together, which was so awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In France, like in this little tiny town with my friend Leah.
Yeah.
So you actually ran San Francisco that year, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is the World Championships for 2025. So it'll be very helpful and a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So we go from Grayson winning in her first trail year, World Champs. She goes through the trials, kicks ass, makes another US team. So this is now in 2021. World Championships get deferred. Everyone's kind of bummed. And then we get to 2022 where then they end up getting deferred again.
Mhm. Yep.
So at this point, we are through 3 years without world championships since Grayson's last world championship. And so were you feeling like you wanted to move on from trail at that point? Like, I don't know, personally, I was really frustrated with the system as an athlete. So kind of like, how are you feeling at that point?
I was frustrated. I still really wanted to go back and defend the title, but it did keep feeling like, okay, can we just do this already? Like, or just like pick a new place to do this if they can't host. Because it's not really fair to all of us to keep doing this. Yeah. And then it also keeps screwing with race plans because usually I spend the first half of the year doing like track and then switch. And when they were like, it's June, and then they were like, just kidding, it's November. And I was like, oh, like, how am I supposed to plan for this now? Because I need to know when to switch over.
Or get started even.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
if
when
you're
do you
waiting
start?
if you're waiting until June to make that decision, like that half the track season's already gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredibly frustrating. And then take us to soon after this world championship was supposed to happen. You're preparing for the world championships in November now, and you announced that you have gotten hurt in the lead up
Yeah.
to Thailand.
That was a bummer. I had switched coaches at the beginning of the year and moved to Flagstaff, and it was a lot, but I thought, oh, it's fine. Like, I'll just get through this. Looking back, it was probably like too much all at once to change on top of like training really hard because I was still training I was going to do steeple. Then my foot was really hurting. So then I thought, well, I can't jump in a race, but I'll do flat races. So I did the 6K champs and the mini and ran really well at both, like PR'd by a lot in the 10K at the New York mini, but afterwards just like couldn't really run. My foot was hurting a lot. So I think it was just a combination of a lot of things that led to the injury. And initially I was told that I tore my plantar, and it is torn on an MRI, but looking back now and seeing that my hip followed suit with being like injured, I think it was all a nerve problem from the beginning that kind of went undiagnosed. Yeah, so it was just kind of a whirlwind of emotions. And I initially thought I'd be able to like cross train and get back. Because when I announced I was injured, that was June, so a year ago. And I still, like, we had until November. So I thought, well, that's plenty of time to like get back from this. And I did race in August at Challenge Stellina, my only trail race last year. And I didn't run until a week of. I had biked the whole time. And then the first time I ran was like there in Italy. And that went well too. So I was still like cautiously optimistic it would be okay, but it just wouldn't go away. And I think it was the lack of diagnosis. I didn't really know how to treat what was going on. It just continued to get worse.
Yeah. What did the sensation feel like? Did it feel like it was in your glute or your hip?
Yeah, it was like, it's a lot of pain in my foot, which now I know is like nerve pain. It wasn't from a torn plantar. And then my hip was feeling like the pain level was pretty low actually, but the frustrating sensation was it kept feeling like paralyzed, like it wouldn't really work. And I couldn't tell where it was in space when I was running. So it felt like it was kind of like flopping around like a dead fish. And that was really hard on trails because you need to know like where your foot is landing and have that proprioception. So that was kind of what was stopping me. Not so much the pain, but that was almost more frustrating because people kept saying like, well, if the pain is too bad. And I was like, no, it's not a pain. It's like a paralysis.
So is that why you chose to do Stellina? Because I imagine that as weird as that is, maybe uphill, it's not as big of an issue as when you're doing up down kind of stuff.
Yes. So I thought I can go uphill, but I cannot go downhill. So I'll do this one. And I like qualified somehow. I don't know how.
Well, Grayson, probably by winning being the world champ.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that helps.
And Grayson said that she did well at this race. She won this race.
Yeah, and you should check out her gap. I need to look at it again. It was insane. And there's also videos of her just smiling, crushing this.
It was all the biking.
Yeah.
Honestly, yes. Biking and uphill running, I swear they just go hand in hand.
They're so good.
Yeah, they're like, even if Grayson has one leg, she still's on this team. Like what it felt like. So then you crushed Challenge Selena. You won, which was really cool. And also Joe Gray won on the men's side. Yeah. So USA swept that day. And so we're almost at this year, but now we're at the end of last year and it's Thailand. And like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know for me personally, when I feel like I didn't have a say, that I'm not somewhere, it's very frustrating. And so how was it for you? You know, kind of, you were on the sidelines in November, not able to defend your title.
It was extremely frustrating because I had waited so long. Like we've talked through all these years now, and every year I was ready. And then the one time I wasn't ready, they finally decided to have these stupid championships. And I was so frustrated to not be there. But I also, just looking forward, I knew Austria was only 8 months away, and I had just been through 5 months of an injury. So I could tell that that's not a long time, especially in like injury terms. Like 8 months could be very short, and you could be injured that whole time if you choose to keep pushing through something. And yeah, I just had to make the call to not do it. There were a lot of tears, but I'm really glad looking back that I didn't do it now.
I think that was probably a very mature decision. Because obviously I'm sure you wanted to race really bad, and you could have come out here and done the VK, but like you wanted to defend your title. And so being able to do both, I'm sure, is a priority. What advice would you give to runners who are currently dealing with something similar, or like an injury or just a setback? Like what is it that kept you kind of going day to day for those 5 months?
I guess you have to zoom out and look at the big picture, and you can't hyper focus on one race as like the most important thing. It could be the most important thing, but if you zoom out, are you going to be like mad you missed one and like took the chance to fix your injury, or more upset that you missed multiple because you didn't take the time to figure out what was going on and get healthy? And for me, that was kind of what I was looking at. And yeah, you just have to reset too. Like you need to be able to move forward with a clean slate. You can't just be juggling injuries the whole time. You have to be healthy.
Yeah. No, that's preach, girl.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, like for you personally, were some of the main factors that kind of helped you through that time? People, resources, other outlets, etc.
People for sure, like having a support system to lean on. I think that's super important. And knowing that your life isn't running all the time and doesn't revolve around running, and things exist outside of running, like focusing on those things too. I like focused on my business for a lot of it and just tried to make that successful. And then I really got into biking like a lot. I was so stoked on biking. So that was pretty fun too, because that's something that has carried over, and I've been doing that this year. Yeah, I think just finding other things that aren't running that you enjoy and lift you up, and doesn't have to be all about running all the time.
Yeah, very true. So many of us get wrapped up in it because we've been doing it for so long. And
yeah,
everybody else is like, oh, that's my runner friend. And it's like, yeah, but I'm hurt right now.
Yeah.
So I gotta be a different friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But so let's go to 2023. We missed Thailand. It is what it is.
Yeah.
2023, you start out the year with a really good roadblock. And what was the name of the half marathon that you ran?
The Milltown half marathon.
And you ran at the Olympic trials qualifier in the half marathon, which is very hard. In your debut half marathon,
I'd run one half before, so I kind of knew like a bit what to expect.
Second half marathon,
yeah.
And she won it overall.
I did. I do think my pacers definitely would have beat me if they were racing, but they were pacing me. So
pretty cool still.
Yeah.
So tell us about that training block.
It was fun. That was one of my goals for the year. It was, so the one good thing, like there are several good things that came out of the injury, but one of it was I got perspective and I had a lot of time to think, and I realized that the track is not very fun for me, and it has always been kind of a source of anxiety and not really joy. And I realized like I just don't need that, and I'd much rather be on the road and the trail. So looking to 2023, I had a lot of time to plan out my schedule while I was injured, and me and my coach decided like going for the marathon in 2024 would be really fun. But to do that, along with all the goals I had for the trail in 2023, I would have to run the half standard early in 2023. So that's kind of where that came from. And then the roadblock, I just really like that kind of training, like threshold is my bread and butter. I've been told I have a really high threshold, so I like to just do that. And I don't really like track work at all. So this felt like great. I could just do threshold like all week and no like speed stuff, which is my favorite. So I like the roadblock a lot, and I felt really fit going into the half, even though the course was kind of wonky and the weather was horrible. We still felt like we could get the standard even on a bad day, and really happy with how the race turned out.
Yeah. I mean, and when she says bad day, she was in long sleeve tights. It was raining. She was running on the sidewalk on and off. So
yeah. Gloves.
She was given a very subpar day, and she still got the standard, which was awesome. Which I'm sure
crushed the standard.
Crushed the standard, yeah. And yeah, I'm sure it was nice to enjoy that ride too with some people that could run that pace with you.
Yeah.
Instead of having to deal with that solo the entire time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Grayson crushed it. So now she's doing the Olympic trials in 2024. And then almost immediately afterwards, then you start transitioning to trails, because then we had the mountain champs. And what was really cool this year is they included the VK and the classic on the same weekend in the same location. Whereas even last year, the VK was Broken Arrow VK, and the classic was like on the East Coast somewhere. So it allowed athletes that like, if they didn't make it in the VK on the first day, they could try and make it the second day. And then the last thing I want to know is it also replicated what would kind of be similar at the actual world champs, where the VK would go first and the mountain classic would go second. So now you're at the mountain champs and you are the defending US champ. You only missed the one last year because you were injured. How excited were you to be at those champs? Because then at this point, did you have to earn your spot back?
I did. Yep. So, yeah, I was so excited. I had a month from the half to the US champs to transition to kind of more trail training, even though I don't really switch too much. But I was so excited just to be there and be healthy and nothing hurt when I was running. And that was just amazing compared to last year where like every step hurt. So I went into that race with just a lot of gratitude and excitement. And not too nervous either. I think the overriding feeling was excited and grateful to be there.
And you absolutely crushed on the first day. I think you won the race by like, was it like 6 or 7 minutes?
I think it was only 5. Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot of time though. And so watching you come out and just like hammer it the first day was so fun. And you also finished in the top men as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, how like, I guess how did it feel to like come back in your first trail race back from injury, just like knock it out of the park?
It felt so good. And it just was really validating. Like this is where you're meant to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing and doing the thing that makes you the most happy. That felt really good. And that's probably contributed to why I ran so fast. It didn't feel like I was running that fast in the race. I was just like happy. I felt like a forest fairy in the like single track part at the top. And maybe that's why the perceived level of exertion was so low, because I was just happy.
Yeah. I recently ran with my teammate Arlen Glick, and we were talking about like Western states. And he said that, you know, so many people talk about how like it's all about who can suffer the most. And he said, I'm really happy when I'm running. And that's why it goes well for me, is because is that I'm just happy. And I was like, dude, that's awesome.
That's it. Yeah. That's the secret.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the mountain champs. So Grayson wins the VK. She destroys it. I definitely have like a certain level of respect for athletes who, even when they're winning, they still push themselves. So it was cool to see you get so much out of yourself out of the VK, even though you could have probably stopped, had some coffee, and kept going. No disrespect to the rest of the athletes, your fitness was just incredible. And then you come back the second day, and it was fun for us as spectators because there was a little bit of hype to it, right? Like you would miss the World Championships, and the World Championships that you miss, Allie Mack wins, like, which is incredible, right? To have another American win. But you guys are getting to go head to head for the first time. And I just have to imagine for you, that was just like fun to like know that you were going to go and compete and like have this fun day. So how was that first loop for you when you're already kind of like pulling ahead and stuff?
It was fun. And Allie and I got to spend some time together this winter. She was in Phoenix, so I met her down there. We got to train a little bit together. So it was fun too, because she's a friend and then also a competitor, but a friend first, and she's great. So I think that made me less nervous too, because at the end of the day, like one of us probably was going to win and I'd be happy. Like I want to win, but she's my friend too, so I'd be happy for her also. And I think, yeah, everyone knows that she's good. And sometimes I feel like I still get like the underdog stick for some reason. So I wanted to go like, I want to race the best people to prove that I can be up there too. And these aren't like flukes. I felt like after Patagonia, there were some comments that like, oh, well, the Africans weren't there, so maybe the results would have been different had Kenya and Uganda been there. And that was like hard to hear. And it just makes me want to prove that no, it's not because someone else wasn't there. Like I want to prove that I can win against anyone. Anyway, the first loop was fun and I was nervous. Like Allie didn't do the VK the day before, so she was definitely more fresh than me. And I was like, oh, I don't know how my legs are going to feel. But when we started climbing, I actually felt pretty good. And just kind of did my normal, like, I'll just push and keep pushing and hope for the best.
Watching you on the downhills on that course was like watching a forest fairy.
I know. I was just about to say that. I feel like, just to reiterate what EmKay said in a slightly different way, I guess, is like, yeah, people tend to underestimate you on downhills, but like everyone needs to know Grayson crushes technical descent. Like she can roll that stuff. To see it like on video, it's like, there you go. The proof is in the pudding. Like Grayson can do this sloppy, weird East Coast.
Like a bog, vertical bog. Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. Like there wasn't a downhill I was like bad at, and then they were like, oh, see, you're bad. They just like started with that narrative, and then I've been trying to like disprove it. Even the race on last weekend at Worlds, I felt like they were like, oh, well, she's not good at downhills. I'm like, where's this coming from? I don't understand. What have I done?
It's okay. Just like, yeah, let it go and then just keep crushing the downhills. And you're like, oh, prove you wrong for the 100th time.
I think maybe the thing that people forget is that like you were a soccer player before you were a runner.
Yeah.
So you got the agility in the eyes and the feet and, you know, soccer players are great downhill runners if they decide to get into the trail scene.
Yeah.
And also steeplechasers. She literally jumps stuff at 9:30 pace for a 3K.
Yeah.
Being able to sight, from far away is always, and now you're a mountain biker too. Dude,
Yeah.
it's just gonna get worse for people.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
She's gonna
man.
be doing Red Bull downhill mountain biking. They'll be like, she's not good downhill, and she's literally
Yeah.
the best mountain biker in the
Not
world.
good.
So then you end up winning, which that's really cool. I totally agree. There's something pretty primal feeling like as a woman being able to get the most out of each other. Like we're friends, but then like to push that much like girth out of each other to where you're like on your hands and knees, like it just makes you love a person more in like a weird way. So that's cool that you felt that connection with Allie. It's like if she wins and she got the most out of me, like respect, she won.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I felt the same way. If Grayson wins and like I get the most out of myself, like respect, she won. So now you're on 2 teams. Was the goal always to do the VK and the classic?
Yes. Yeah, I knew I don't mind like the back-to-back races. The VK is such an aerobic effort, but it usually doesn't like take too much out of your legs that it makes it okay on the second day. And yeah, I was like, I haven't been able to do this in so long, so why not like do all of them because I've been gone for so long.
And so fast forward to Innsbruck. The Wednesday was the first day you guys ran the VK quite late in the afternoon. It was, I don't know like how you guys felt racing, but being a spectator, I was pretty warm out there in the sun. But still absolutely beautiful course. Tell us about that race because you ended up getting third. And it was kind of a weird race in that you guys went up and then there was like a half a mile or a mile of flat. And then there was a 40% grade on like a grassy-ish slope.
Yeah. And did you check that out beforehand too?
We did. We got there about a week early. So we did get to run the whole course in full all at once. So that was good because I knew that grassy part was coming, which if I didn't know that was coming and then I just like showed up to that would have been a nightmare. But I knew, and that definitely influenced like my strategy for the race too.
Yeah. And so everyone knows it was about 7.1K with almost 3,500 feet of climbing. It was like 3,400. We'll just call it 3,500. And so seeing that grass at the end, I guess, what was your strategy going in then when you're like, what did you decide you were going to do? Because for me and EmKay, we're allergic to the VK. We can't do VK.
I think I'm allergic to the VK.
Yeah.
Afterwards, everyone was like, what? That's not fun. Like, why are we doing this? This isn't a fun thing to do. It also started on the road, which was interesting. And yeah, there were just so many weird quirks about the course that made it kind of weird and where you would decide to push. You did have the second mile had like 1,300 or 1,400 feet of climbing too. So pretty much it was get through the second mile and get to that flat part and just try and like flush all the lactic out. And then you have basically another interval. So I was kind of thinking of it as like 2 intervals in my head with a float break in the middle. I'm confident in my flat running abilities against mountain runners for the most part. So I felt like I could probably even run that a little bit slow for me, but still get some time on people and then hit the last climb, which when we saw it, we were like, you can't run this. So by the time you get here, like there's going to be no kicking involved. Like you're just going to be like surviving at that point. And it was so hot. When I saw EmKay, I was like dying. And she was like, just keep your hands on your knees and keep hiking. I was like, okay, this hurts so bad. Yeah, it hurt a lot. VK's just hurt a lot, I think.
When Joe Gray ran past us, like the grit on his face was so intense. I was like, I have a video of him and he literally is like gritting his teeth, he's pumping his arms so hard because he was running at the point when I saw you.
God.
But I don't know how much longer he was running after that. I couldn't have done it. But yeah, it looked gnarly.
VKs are the hardest race discipline I've ever done, I think.
Same.
Yeah. They just hurt from the gun.
But you held on that last 40% and you came away with a bronze.
Yeah, I didn't feel very good that day. So I was a little disappointed that it didn't feel as good as like Sunapee did. And yeah, I was like, very happy with the bronze and the effort I gave. Bummed that it wasn't like an A feeling day for me so that I could push harder. But I was happy that I still had to push a lot. And that was kind of cool to be challenged like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible that you said you would float during a PK. My brain
in the middle.
Like, I would die and then I'd crawl. So you ended up with the bronze, which is still incredible, Grayson, for not feeling like it was an A day. And it's such a short race too, that I feel like if you feel slightly off, it just is that much harder. So that's an incredible result considering that. And so were you in third the whole time, or like, how did that go?
I was in like the top 5 when we hit, there was like a part where the single track, we went from road to single track through a gate and everyone kind of got in a line. So I think I was in 5th at that point and then passed a couple people. And then me and the girl that ended up getting, the woman that got 2nd, we were in 3rd and 4th for a very long time and then ended up passing another woman right before the flat part. And then I was in 3rd for the rest of the way, just kind of chasing and trying not to give up, even though you like want to so badly.
Yeah. EmKay, what did it look like for you on that last part, watching those women?
It looked like I would have wanted to give up.
I did.
Yeah, no, it was insane because Andrea actually came by in 2nd. And I was like, I don't know if she's like, because they're all so close together, but they're all moving so slowly that like is she gonna catch her? I don't know. And so I was like, oh, maybe Grayson still got it. Like she's just gonna follow Andrea. They're gonna go up this hill, but it's so hard to tell.
Yeah.
But it looked really painful. There's definitely that.
Can confirm it was very painful.
I do have to say, as a spectator watching VK, that part is like, I feel like there could be a comedy skit about it, like people making moves on a 40% grade, like what that actually like, they're walking. That person's walking slightly faster.
They walked faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, huge congrats on that, Grayson. No doubt if you go back again, like you'll be pinned as a strong favorite. Especially after your VK performance at US Champs. Okay, so now first day is done and you got 3rd. Kind of bittersweet. You got a lot out of yourself, it sounds like, but didn't quite feel like your A self. What did you do the next 2 days while the other races were happening?
The very next day we did a course preview of the classic course, and it was nice that it was 2 loops, so we only had to run 1 and we could see the whole course for the most part. And then just tried really hard to recover. Nothing was really sore. My calves were tired, but not sore. The VK, like I said, is kind of lucky. It's so hard, but then you're not sore, which is kind of weird. So just like laid around for 2 days, and we got to cheer on the 80K finish because that was in Innsbruck, the town we were at, and that was really cool to see. So yeah, cheering on teammates was all we did really.
Did you get some inspiration from watching the US team like finish so well in that 80K?
Yes, that was so cool. It was so cool to see Drew and Zach sprinting at the end of an 80K, 86K. We should give them the credit. It was longer than 80K.
Yeah.
And they were literally sprinting to get more seconds for the team time. And that was just crazy. I can't believe they did that.
You're like, if they can sprint at an 86K, I'll sprint.
Like, I'll be fine. At least I don't have to run for 12 hours like they do.
What did you do like nutrition wise? And so you're relaxing and stuff, but like, were you like consuming more protein, or like, did you stick to what you normally do?
Yeah, just kind of what I normally do. I was trying to drink a lot of electrolytes and water just to like flush everything and stay hydrated, because it was warm and we were racing at 2 again on the classic day. And then we raced at 2:00 on the VK2. And I don't know why they had us racing so late, but I feel like at those races, being dehydrated is like your biggest enemy, because you've been awake for so long too. And maybe you're not hungry, but if you haven't been drinking for the half of the day that you've been awake, then you'll be dehydrated in the race.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know if it's normally that hot in June in Austria, but it felt unusually hot like the whole weekend we were there.
Yeah.
I was so happy when it started raining during our race, because I think if it had continued to be as hot as it was, it would have been a very different day for me.
Oh no.
Oh man. Yeah, that first 6 miles was rough. So at least like with you guys, the races are short enough that you just like get through it, but it's kind of miserable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there were still plenty of women that seemed like they had heat stroke at the end of the classic race.
Yeah.
And even you, I think I remember seeing a video of you like immediately like chugging an entire water at the finish line.
Yeah. They didn't have water, and they only had one aid station. You would hit it only one time at the end of the first lap. And that honestly was not enough, because it was 78 degrees when we started the race, and the race took over an hour, and you only have one chance to get any water. And it was before, like after one climb and then before the next climb, and I feel like the climbs are when you get the most thirsty. So I was very thirsty by the end of the race.
Yeah, because I'm assuming you probably didn't carry anything with you.
No. Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. Ugh, hate that. So now, since we're talking about it, so now we're at Grayson's second of 2 races. Something that I think, kind of briefly looking at the results, about 50% of the VKers are doing. Some people did like the VK and the trail short actually. And then maybe a little bit more than 50%, maybe like 70% like did the VK and the mountain champs or the mountain classic, which this year was 2 days apart. Whereas in Ireland, it was only 1 day apart. What are you telling yourself on this day? Because I saw you at the start line and you look like you're about to tear some like stuff up. I was like, get out of this girl's way. Like, you were just like so focused. And I'm like, she's about to light this stuff on fire. What were like, the day going into morning of, what were you telling yourself?
Well, I felt a lot better pre-race the day before the classic. And full disclosure, like I'm about to get my period, and usually the week before I get really hot and I like feel like I can't breathe, which apparently is like an estrogen progesterone response. So that was happening on the VK day. But then once I got through it and was a couple of days closer, I started to feel better, and I was like, okay, this is like pretty on cycle, which is good. And I know that I'm going to continue to feel better now. I got through like the rough days. And so pre-race felt way better, which made me feel good, because pre-race before the VK, I was like, oh God, like I do not feel good today. And then the morning of, I felt pretty good. And I was really happy with the VK, but I also I really wanted to win. And so going into the classic, I wanted that really badly and was ready to like do anything to do it. So I was very focused on the start line. Like, I'm going to just run as hard as I can right now for the next hour. And I was prepared for it to hurt, which I think was good actually, because sometimes I get nervous about the pain, but I was okay with hurting on Saturday.
That's great. And so I'm curious, because like when you're on the track, it's so easy to compare yourself to like your competitors, because like everybody's got a PB, you know exactly who you're racing. You probably even know like how they race. But in
Yeah.
this situation, like it's really hard to compare performances unless you just happen to have raced somebody in the past. So how much did you know about like your competitors going into this race, and how much did that play into your race strategy?
There were a couple names I know and have raced before. The Elise and Billy, who both got second and third with me in Patagonia, were both in the race. So I know like they're strong, and there were names I recognized. I raced Joyce on the World Cup before too. But yeah, you don't know as much. And I think I was just kind of like, well, I know what my strengths are. And if I can just be confident in those, hopefully that's enough to like match anyone else's strengths too. And I knew like it was so much road and so flat at the beginning, I could get out to the front relatively easily effort wise for me, maybe compared to some other people. And then once you're in it, you just kind of have to race.
Yeah, I feel like.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, because you checked the course out, like after you saw the course, were you excited about it? Just knowing what your strengths are, did you feel like, yes, I'm gonna crush this sort of thing?
Yeah, I definitely thought the road parts played into my strengths, and then I was kind of bummed there wasn't more like technical parts, because I would also say that's one of my strengths too. And I also signed up for a mountain race, and I was like, if I wanted to do a road race, I would have gone to do one. And now I'm here. It actually was pretty fun though to mix the disciplines, and I felt like it was a cool result, and it challenged people, I think, in a different way.
Were you always planning on racing in a carbon shoe, or did that kind of happen when you previewed the course?
Yeah, that happened when I previewed the course and realized just how much road there was. So I went to a running store in Innsbruck and picked up a pair of Gen 1 endorphin speeds, because they didn't even have like the newest version, and they were half a size bigger than I normally wear. But I was like, oh, I'm gonna just do this because I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
It seems like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a little surprising to see so many carbon shoes like in a mountain race, like to what you're saying. Like I also wish it had a little bit of technical. But I still think you would have blown everyone out of the water regardless. Anyone who says no, like remember that Grayson won on a very technical course in Patagonia. Like that thing was insane just 4 years ago. So yeah. So
yeah, I think
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the US team was really fortunate on the women's side, because we did have so many, all three of the women that we had out there have track backgrounds, but they're also really good mountain athletes. So like not a worry. Whereas like on the guys' side, I know that like Leon was like stoked.
Yeah.
But the other two guys were really nervous because they're like mountain athletes. And they were like, we didn't qualify for a road team, you know?
Yeah. I think that's where it's super helpful though, to do stuff where like, if you're a mountain or trail runner, and Grayson preaches this a lot on her Instagram, it's like important that you're always kind of touching on your speed and have that as a tool. Because whether the course has more gravel or not, like it's so helpful to have that like as an essential tool, especially in the races that you are participating in, where it's like about an hour or so, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're fast. And even if the downhill's technical, like at Sunapee, my downhill mile was still 5:16, like on the technical part. So if your legs can't move that fast, even if the effort is less because it's downhill, you're at a disadvantage. And then the downhill paces for Austria were like stupid fast because they were on the road. So yeah, there's no way like that would have been okay if I haven't done like speed stuff before.
Yeah. And just for our listeners, when Grace stupid fast, she had in her third and fourth mile, she ran 5 minutes. Let me just say, 5 minutes in her third mile. There's not a lot of mountain runners that could run 5-minute pace at all. And then she runs 5:36. So for her 2-mile section between miles 3 and 4, she ran 10:36, which would probably win a lot of 2-mile races just flat out. And then she finished the race in 5:45 and 5:25. And there were sections where she was running 4:30 to 4:45 pace on the downhill.
And the craziest thing about that is that that's when she got passed.
So this is how I knew I was like not running slow when Tove passed me. I wasn't like dogging it, and she passed me, and I've never been challenged on a downhill before. So I was like, who is this? And what is she doing? And then she passed me, and we were running like 4:20 on a section. And then that's when I was like, this isn't smart, because we have to do this again. Like, we're not even halfway. And David, my coach the night before, had been like, whatever you do, don't run your mile PR on the first downhill. Like, save it for the second downhill, because you still have to climb another 1,200 feet. So that's kind of why I let her go a little bit. It was a very conscious decision. Like, we can't be running 4:20 pace and then like expect to do it again.
And it looks like a conscious decision. Like, watching the live stream, like, I could see the calm in your face when you were just like, I'm letting it go. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. I kind of thought, like, if she can do this twice, then good on her, and she definitely deserves to win. But I'm willing to bet that, like, we're not going to do this twice, and I don't want to blow up in lap 1 of 2. I want to like run the second lap harder. So yeah, I was like, you can go, and I'll just catch back up in a little bit when you're done with this.
Yeah, it was really cool to see you take control of the race from like the start. So if anyone hasn't seen, I think it's on YouTube now, but like you guys kind of hit a single track, and to me, you were controlling the race. Like, you made it the pace that you wanted, and you were kind of like pushing on the uphill. And I would say that's one of your strengths, but you're good at everything. So you were pushing on the uphill, and then Tove wasn't even in the screen at that point. So like she was placed many places behind you, maybe like later top 10. And then when it came back to you guys coming out, Tove was just like screaming on the downhill. And like EmKay said, Grayson was just like, I'm just doing my thing. And then one of my favorite parts, I don't know if EmKay, you got to see this in person or like on the screen, is you're going into the second loop, and the grade was insane. I want to say it was like 15% maybe. And Grayson's just like this little shark, just waiting, just like not chilling. I know you're pushing, but you looked very in control. And then you like decided right when it got super steep to pass her. And I'm guessing that was on purpose.
Yeah, I kind of thought back to track when you're like 3 hard steps. When you make a pass, like you need to make the pass definitive and not let them latch onto you and come with. And so when I was coming up behind her, I was like, okay, 3 hard steps, and you need to like push and not let her think she can come with you. Like, you have to kind of crush them when you make the pass. So I was like waiting till I felt like, okay, I can do this. And I think that was the part of the course on the description. They called it Hell or Who. And it's in the like UCI Road Cycling Championships, because it's so steep. It's like the Hell Hill. Yeah,
so we were like standing on the course, like waiting for more US athletes to come by. And this guy from another country, like, because the screen was behind us, he starts pointing at us, and he's like trying to tell us. And we turn around, and Grayson's making this move, and we're like, oh no! So then we like run back to the screen, and it was chaos. But I hope that my old college athletes hear you talking about 3 quick steps, because they used to hate when I would say that to them. And one of them even commented on my run, like my post about my run, and they were like, did you take 3 quick steps? And I wanted to be like, yes. Every time I passed somebody, I took 3 quick steps.
Top 10 finisher and world champion. Take 3 quick steps.
3 hard steps.
Love that. And then from there, it looked like you kind of went into like these stairs, right, that kind of got hidden, and you just looked like you were hammering, which was sick. And because you made that move, and I'm sure you were like, I'm going to shake this girl off pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the top, were people still telling you like how close she was, or like what were people telling you? I'm always curious.
They were very supportive. Everyone was cheering and everyone knew my name. Maybe they were reading my bib, but I felt like I was like, oh, maybe they know me. The Italians though are great at giving you like course updates. So every time I passed an Italian coach, they would tell me how many seconds I had on Tahoe, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, the gap. But I was like, well, I want to see like how big I can make this gap. So I just kept pushing the uphill because I knew I could run the downhill like as fast as the first time because I hadn't blown up the first time. So I was pretty confident I wasn't going to let her catch me again on the next downhill.
And you definitely didn't. Did you end up beating her by like 50 seconds, I think?
Yeah, 57.
Yeah, that's huge considering going into the beginning of the second lap, she had like a 10 or 15 second lead on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in that race so smart. It was just like a master class in running your own race. It was awesome to watch.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think it was cool too. Like you were coming into the chute, and I'm sure at that point you probably knew that you were going to win. But you grab the American flag and you're still like kind of sprinting to the finish, like as fast as you can with your hands in the air, which I was like, she is getting every second possible on this. And then you crossed the line, and what was cool is they had a tape for you. I was like nervous if they were going to do that. Maybe 2 starts. But then you kind of like, you fall to your knees because you got like everything out of yourself. So going from the VK and then now to this moment, like what, how did you feel?
It was just a lot of like, yes, I did it. I'm really proud of myself. This is what I wanted to do. And standing on the start line, like that's what I intended to do that day. And it was just cool to have it like come out that way and know that I like really emptied the tank too. Didn't leave anything out there. And it was cool to have to like work for it. Cause I think in a lot of the trail races, like at US Champs, there wasn't really a lot of competition to push me, but I got there in the VK, so I obviously got beat by 2 people. And then Tove's so good at downhill. And that was like a cool experience for me to like not be in front and have to work for it. And it like brought out more of me too, which was cool. So it is cool, like you said before, when women are pushing each other. And I think Tove was dead too, because I tried to like go say good job and she just like couldn't even sit up. So I think we both were like really happy with our races, and it was cool to push each other like that.
It was awesome to watch. Yeah, man, that whole race was so fun, and they did a really good job of live coverage too. And so just like sitting in the town square there, like waiting for you guys at the finish was, it was cool to watch. And I like tried to take a video of you as you ran by in the finish chute, and it was so bad because you just moved by so fast. It was like she was there for 2 seconds. Like
yeah. I kept having like nightmares of those races where people start celebrating too early and then get past like right at the line. So I was like, I am not gonna let this happen. But then later Paul, the team staff who gave me the flag, he was like, don't worry, I wouldn't have given you a flag to run with if she was like close to beating you. Like we wouldn't
you would have to wait for that flag.
Yeah.
That's good on him. Yeah, I saw, so as you mentioned, like there was some more like gravel road stuff. It's all still super steep, but kind of what was tripping me out was that trail in town where I was like, if I was really tired, I'd be scared I would hit like one of those rocks or something, right? Because you finished, you guys both finished in that, right?
Yeah. It was, I don't know about you, EmKay, but well, you started in it.
Yeah, it was terrible.
They had like the weirdest start ever.
But Casey Campbell went down hard that first lap in the city trail.
It was like surprisingly difficult when you were tired.
Yeah. It's just like weird it's a man-made, but it's like, or
I think
person-made.
that was the problem, is it was like unnatural and there were like moguls and stuff. So it's not like how a trail would become into existence. It was
it was like just wide enough that you kind of felt confident, but also like really treacherous.
Yeah.
Like you'd be like, oh, I have like a line here. And then all of a sudden there'd be like this massive boulder. And you're like, this isn't even a boulder that I would find on the trail.
No,
like,
and it's like placed right in the middle. Like the
or
most
like the
awkward spot.
The weird logs over the water. I don't know how you guys ran over that, because that was like almost worse than a cow grate.
The second time I almost was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna run through the water. Like, because it wasn't that deep. It was only like 4 inches deep. And then I thought, no, you should try at least to run on a log.
Because what if you like rolled your little ankle in the water? Like, I hated starting on it. So I can't imagine having to sprint finish on it, because we were supposed to have a controlled start. And of course that turned into everybody sprinting because they were going to restart us on the other side, and nobody's going to give up their space.
No.
So we're all just like, beginning of a race sprinting through this half a mile with 400 people. And I was like, what are we doing here?
Dang. Well, so Grayson finishes in 104. Side tangent of person-made trails being very bad.
Very bad.
Grayson finishes in 104.29. She ended up beating Tove Alexanderson by 57 seconds, which she basically put on her in the second lap, which is incredible. 105.26. And then Joyce Muthoni, who Grayson said she's pretty common in like the World Mountain Running Association Cup races. She finishes in 106.40. So when Grayson finishes the line, just to put this in perspective for people, she is the only person the entire week to podium in 2 races, which, we have to give the advantage of doing both the VK and the classic versus a longer race, but still, like, that's incredible. Within 4 days, you earned 2 podium finishes, which I'm sure was part of the goal to start with, but like, even from the men's side, you're the only person. And I want to put into perspective too that like Grayson won the world championship in 2019. So you basically did like an Olympic cycle and came back and defended your title. You like have a dominance essentially for, an Olympic cycle. How did that feel like post the entire world champ week?
It just felt like a culmination of a lot of hard work and tears and hard days had finally come full circle, and like that's what makes it all worth it too. And to come back in dominance, like I said, I think when I won in Patagonia it was unexpected, and then there were a lot of like doubts about if that was a fluke, like who was there, it wouldn't happen again, and to be able to do it again and then get another medal. And the Africans were there this time, so we can't say that like no one showed up. That was really cool and validating for me too, like a lot of demons that I've tried to deal with and not listen to, but have listened to sometimes over the last 4 years. So it just gives me confidence moving forward that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and it makes me happy. And I just want to keep doing that and not listen to what other people have to say about it.
Well, you knocked it out of the park. You rocked it, and we're so proud.
Thank you.
Happy for you, definitely. What is next now? This is like, I asked on Instagram what to ask you. We have a lot of Dino Nuggets questions, actually. If you fueled with Dino Nuggets in between. I don't think they have Dino Nuggets in Europe, so maybe.
I did not see any in Austria.
Okay. And then if that move was intentional on the second part, which we covered that. So yeah, what's next? How's your body feeling now? We're about almost a week exactly out now, actually, from the VK.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, even been a little bit less than that. So yeah, how's the body feeling, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's okay. The energy's starting to come back. The time change is starting to get a little bit better. I think there's still some like inflammation left and I'm a little tired. So I was going to do Broken Arrow this weekend. And now I think I'm just going to like spend the weekend here with my family and treat it more like a vacation. I have some big plans for the rest of the summer and I don't want to risk anything right now. And 4 races in 10 days was more than a little risky. So I think we'll just like count our blessings and step back from this weekend and just kind of enjoy the last week.
Absolutely. And you deserve it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us today. We're so excited to have a world champ again. Last year, Allie Mack, you this year. And hopefully we keep this trend going.
Yeah. We just have to have Americans win every year. Now in 2025, I know the course already. So
yeah. Are you
There
good?
you go.
I'm guessing that's in the plans is to go back. Would it be for the VK and Classic, or do you see yourself like starting to bump up?
I don't know, because I have the auto spot now for the Classic race. So I really want to probably defend that. But if the 40K course is interesting, maybe I'll consider bumping up or like doing both or something.
Cool.
Damn, both. She's wild.
Yeah, maybe I'll try and triple.
Heck yeah. Pull us a fawn on.
Yeah, yeah.
In the mountain running world.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to like dive into it too much, but do you want to share your summer plans, or are you still gonna wait until like see how your body feels?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll do Cirque Series maybe in July. And then Series and All is kind of my next big goal. And then 2 more Golden Trail races and the Golden Trail final. So Golden Trail will be like the 4th goal after that. But I would really like to compete for the win at Series and All.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love to
That's
hear
gonna
it.
I can't wait to see you do that. That's gonna be that's like the perfect race for you, and I think you're gonna have some fun competition too with like EmKay and stuff. And maybe I think Sophia Lockley will be there too. So it'd be cool to see you guys racing each other, and just like you said, like get the most out of each other. But yeah, you're gonna crush that. It's basically a VK and then a half marathon. So you
double
perfect.
2 VKs.
Yeah. Great.
Well, enjoy your vacation and
Thank you.
enjoy being world champion again. And I'm sure we'll chat with you again soon.
Yes, would love to see you both soon.
Yeah. Thanks again, Grayson. This has been the Sub Hub brought to you by Freetrail.